welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, maybe the only show, that shows you how to close the wealth gap in your own life with the man who's done it for many, our wealth coach himself, Tyrone French. Hey, Tyrone.
Welcome to another episode of Closing the Wealth Gap. I'm your host, Tyrone French. Thank you for tuning in today. If you value this content, please do me a favor. Go to closingthewealthgap.net. Hit that follow button. It would really help us out. Again, you can also check me out personally at www.tyronefrench.com. We have a lot of information there that's going to help you out as far as getting you on the right track. Also, I have a mobile app that you can actually download into your phone for free. Price is free. We tried to make the price as right as possible, and a lot of people tend to like free, so that's what we did. You just text Tyrone French to 36260. Again, text Tyrone French to 36260. And we'd like to remind everybody out there, this show is about informational purposes, or for informational purposes only, and for entertainment. We're not giving investment advice here, but a lot of times we do talk about our own personal experiences. So with that being said, I'd like to bring in my favorite guy in the whole worldwide world.
Oh, me.
Mr. Paul Roberts. How you doing, Paul?
I don't even know how I'm doing today. You told me today's topic 2 minutes ago, and I'm thinking, this is going to explode. This is just gonna we're gonna have people up in arms.
You know, our nation is so divided right now, and you know, a lot of people we don't talk to one another anymore.
That's the truth. We yell at one another, or we don't listen at all.
And right? we dig in based on our perceptions and based on our experiences and based on our conditioning.
Right.
And I tell you what. I was watching a YouTube channel a couple of days ago, and you know, I normally give this illustration of an elephant, a baby elephant that's conditioned to act a certain way when it gets older. And so what they'll do is they'll take that baby elephant and they'll put a chain around one of his legs, and that baby elephant will try to get away from that chain and that stake. But over a period of time, it realizes that it's impossible to do. So it just gives up. So fast forward 10 years in the future, that elephant still remembers all the struggle that it went through, all the pain trying to get away from that chain. So now they could just put a small rope around his leg and it'll never try to get away. Mm-hmm. So the other day, there was a scientific study where they had a jar of fleas. And they put hundreds of fleas inside this jar container. Mm-hmm. And so when it didn't have a top on it, the fleas were jumping out of the container. So finally what they did was it was like just a regular jar.
You're making me sneeze here. You're talking about fleas here. All of a sudden I feel the need to sneeze here or something, right?
But what they did was they put a top on top of the jar.
Okay.
And they left the jar in a lighted area for 3 days. And when they came back, they opened the jar, and the fleas never jumped higher than the top of that jar. And it didn't matter what they did. Didn't matter. They were conditioned because they knew that they couldn't get out. So they were never going to jump higher than the top of the jar. And what they did was based on the reproduction of those fleas, it passed down to the next generation of fleas. They never had the ability to jump higher than the top of that jar.
Wow.
So yes, conditioning is a real thing. It's a real thing. And sometimes, even when you're looking at your family members, you know, and we love our families, you know, you can't pick your families, but, you know, you love your families. And so even back in the day, when you look at somebody's name was Baker, mm-hmm. It's because they were the town baker.
Yeah, right.
Somebody's name was Farmer. Why? Because they were the farmer. Butcher, you know, the Smith, which is the Smitty.
Right.
So those names passed down from generation to generation. And so what got my attention just based on that conditioning by itself was I was talking to a client last week, and I was giving her and a lot of people don't know, but I'm a licensed insurance agent for the state of California. Mm-hmm. So I was giving her some advice based on her mother. And so the mother, who was a senior citizen, had a limited income based on her budget. And so she wanted to increase the life insurance because she was getting to the point where she didn't want to put more money to the policy than she can actually get back because these were smaller policies.
Right.
So the issue was, I said, well, you can literally take out another policy. You have an insurable interest, so you can take out another policy. What she said to me, Paul, it floored me. She said, yeah. She said, but I don't want to get rich off of my mother's death.
Yeah. Ooh.
And again, the reason I'm bringing this up is because based on conditioning, a lot of people have that same sentiment, that they think that if they buy life insurance, that they're taking advantage of a loved one based on something so morbid as their death. And what I had to explain to her was generational wealth, that families have done this for generations, and not just with small policies, but with hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. And in a lot of instances, the matriarch or the patriarch of the family will instruct the siblings to put life insurance on them so that they can cooperatively, pay those premiums, to whereas the burden is not falling on one individual in the family. And then the actual beneficiary could be the oldest in the family, or it could be a family trust. And so now what you're talking about is you're buying money that is income tax free. And again, a lot of people don't seem to understand that, because let's say if your mom and dad they passed away and left you a 401k or an IRA that was tax deferred. And now you get this vehicle that is laden with income taxes.
Yeah, right.
That you have to pay. And if you don't pay those taxes, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So your loved ones never anticipated or never wanted you to get into any type of financial difficulty or tax problems, but that's what they did when they gave you that IRA, if you don't know how to use it wisely. Life insurance is a product that is self-completing. It goes to that family most of the time income tax-free, and we can also make it estate tax-free as well. So when I explained to her that you're not taking advantage and that this is just a wealth strategy that people have used for thousands of years, or at least hundreds of years, she said that she never looked at it that way, Paul.
Yeah, she's thinking about, I'm going to make money when my mom or my dad dies. Ooh, so am I waiting for them to die? Am I hoping they're going to die or something? No, they're hoping that they can leave you something. They want to, for you and your grandchildren and others and the great-grandchildren and others, this is how you start the cycle. And if every generation did this, what would be accrued after 2-3 generations?
Well, it goes back to leaving an inheritance. Yeah. But it also gave me the idea of what we're going to talk about today as far as reparations for descendants of slaves. Because not only are we dealing with that, the deficit of having the generational wealth, but you got to kind of look at the systemic racism that was going on based on people not even being able to they couldn't even have the opportunity to buy life insurance. They couldn't even buy life insurance, Paul.
Couldn't buy anything for a long time.
They couldn't even accumulate certain assets that they could pass down to the next generation. So in California, in San Francisco, they're doing a study. And what they're saying is that what they want to do is provide reparations for descendants of slaves. And they threw out a dollar amount. Now, this is not going to be finalized. It's still in the preliminary stages. It's not going to be finalized or they're not going to come to it's not going to be a conclusion in June of this year, 2023, but they're going to be on the right track as far as trying to figure out what the dollar amount is. And so a number that they put out there was $5 million for a descendant. And the NAACP actually balked at that. And a lot of people took offense to the NAACP objecting to, why would you object to a dollar amount based on descendants of slaves when it could actually help the community? And what a lot of people just didn't seem to understand is that they understand finance. They understand economics. They understand wealth. And so African Americans, we represent 12% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
If you give somebody $5 million with no financial education
Yeah.
and no financial literacy, case in point, a lot of people win the lottery.
Yes.
And they've studied this. They've tracked it. They win the lottery, and maybe 5 years after that, not only are they broke, but they're in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And they're filing bankruptcy. And it destroys their lives. It destroys their family lives. But really, guess what happens to that money, Paul? It really, it leaves the hands of the person that is financially illiterate, and it goes right into the hands of the person that is financially literate.
Yeah.
So it would destroy. I mean, if we represent 12% of the population, I would say that it would destroy 6% of the population right off the bat.
Everybody would spend like a drunken sailor. Everybody would just go out and waste it and blow it, and the predator, like they say, when you win the lotto, they try and keep your name secret because immediately people descend on you. Oh, a needy cause. Oh, a great get-rich scheme. Some other crazy thing, and people fall for this stuff, and all of a sudden they get taken advantage of. In the same way, I'll give you another shocking statistic. I wish I could remember the exact number. We had a representative from the NFL Players Association in here, NFL Players Association, and they said, I'm not talking about the handful of superstars. I'm not talking about the couple that we all know.
Right.
I'm talking about the majority of people who play pro football become broke and in debt and in distress by the time their career ends.
Right.
Because many of them came from nothing. They came from humble beginnings here. And it isn't just African Americans. It's every color into the spectrum here, right? Kid from the farm in Ohio, the kid from...
It's about financial literacy. So, yes.
And these kids hit the jackpot. They think they're suddenly making millions of dollars after all this. And every relative, every friend descends upon them, and they just suck them dry. And every get-rich scheme, and they throw it away and blow it, and big lifestyle and everything. And I saw this, everybody knows I worked in Hollywood for a little while as an entertainment publicist. I'll never forget I was working on a show called Chips. Remember Chips, the motorcycle show? I had a good client that was on Chips. And somebody signed on for the last season of Chips as like, not to star, but, like another recurring character. And the first thing that actor, I still don't remember his name because he disappeared right after this, but his first deal was when he got the assignment, before he got his first check, he went out and bought a multi-million-dollar house, assuming that he's going to make enough through the coming years. And the show got canceled the next year.
Right.
And he didn't make multi-millions off of one season, the last season of Chips. And I don't know what happened, but he disappeared in obscurity. I thought, how stupid. The first thing you're going to do is go buy a big mansion. Why don't you do the work first and see how well it pays out and get a financial planner and figure out the future of how to do this?
But Paul, you perform based on your knowledge level at that time.
Yeah. Right.
And so based on where he was, based on knowledge, it just felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And the people that were around him on that same level were probably encouraging him to do it.
Yeah, you made
because they didn't know any better either.
Yeah,
and again, here's the thing: I am not against reparations. I'm for reparations, but I'm against reparations without education.
Or for one big, it's come as just one big check. You just get what just arrives in the mail, and suddenly
they're still debating whether it's just going to be a cash payment or what I would prefer. Just like if somebody passed away and the insurance company could give them a large check. Or they can do what's called a settlement option. And so they can break it down and break down payments. But here's the thing. I would be more inclined to states and federal governments saying, hey, look, we're gonna give you an annuity.
Yeah.
We're going to set an annuity aside, just like someone like Social Security. Have a fund that we're going to give you an annuity. And let's say that annuity is for X amount of dollars per year. Mm-hmm. And not only is it for you, but it's for
your descendants,
your kids and your grandkids as well.
Yeah.
Again, and that could be true generational wealth. But again, if you give a large dollar amount to somebody that's financially illiterate, and then that's a one-time deal, not only did they mess up themselves, but they messed up future generations as well.
Yeah. Interesting. I never.
Hey, but I'll give you another case.
Never heard this. Right.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
I'm on social media this morning, just going through and checking my various social media sites and stuff, and all of a sudden this pops up on LinkedIn, and it talks about Mike Tyson generated over $300 million in his career.
Wow.
Before he retired boxing in 2003, but he was $30 to $60 million in debt due to bad financial habits.
He blew $300 million and then some. Wow.
But here's the other side of the story. Once he got around the right people, and he began to educate himself, what he did was he built a $1 million a month cannabis business. He has a podcast now.
I know he's big.
500,000 people per month listening to his podcast, and he earned like $10 million just from an exhibition fight. So now basically he's worth about $400 million.
Worked his way back up.
But he had to go through that. He went through that so that other people could see that, yeah, he made all of that money without education and without having a good team around him. And he blew it. And the minute he had an aha moment and the right people came into his life, and that could be the right spouse, it could be the right business manager, it could be the right attorney.
Could be the right podcast he tuned into one day.
The right podcast with the right audience. But he got back on track.
Aha moment means anyway, suddenly it hits you like a light bulb goes on. Oh, man, what am I doing?
So, again, I want people to tune in, listen to this show, and give us some feedback. Just go to Tyrone at TyroneFrench.com, send an email. Give us some feedback based on what do you feel about reparations? How do you feel about reparations? What form do you think reparations should come in? Because some people even look at education. Let's start giving college scholarships out to individuals.
Oh, that's intriguing. Does it have to be money? Couldn't it be something that would actually advance your life or your kid's life, not just, I'll give you a bunch of money and you blow it?
But again, Paul, the reason that it's a delicate topic is because there's a cause and effect relationship to everything. So imagine now you have a large population that's receiving millions of dollars that's being now circulated into the economy. Guess what that's going to do to inflation?
Yeah, particularly if they run out and spend it all immediately, that it suddenly floods the market with free money. Everybody drives price. Every price would get for luxury goods and whatever. Yeah.
Why? Because even right now, before reparations, black people represent $1.2 trillion.
Wow.
In the economy.
Wow.
Just based on wealth. And so once that money hits the economy, yes, it's going to cause inflation. But again, what it's doing is you're not really investing, you're spending. Yeah. And so again, that money is just going to matriculate itself up to the top.
The people who collect money will collect more. Banks or whatever, and everybody else here.
Banks, income tax. I mean, so again, that's another thing. Do you tax this money? Is it taxed or non-taxed? So again, they're hashing it out.
And can I ask one? Sure. Believe me, I'm the only person. This is a hard conversation for somebody who looks like me to even enter into, because I don't understand the
but
pain.
That's why you and I are having this conversation.
Yeah, this is. Yes. So the one question that always comes in my head is, two questions. I'll give you two questions. Who gets it? Because there's an awful lot. How do you trace your lineage? Some people can. And that might be pretty clear cut, that I'm the grandson, great-grandson or something of somebody who's a slave. But an awful lot of people in America can't trace their lineage past their parents. And they don't know anything about their past. And people have intermarried and mixed and all sorts of stuff through the years. It's not like this population stayed apart and stayed alone and everything else. You've got you say you're even part Native Indian, American Indian and stuff here. And we all got some. Not all of us, but a lot of us have some mixture of people, particularly in the last generation, as the walls have come down and people have intermarried and intermixed and whatnot. And it just seems like you're it's not a clear-cut case, and it seems like it's rife for fraud and for other things, or a difficulty deciding. And how would it be? You get one, but you don't. Well, we're both black. We both live in the same community. But you can't show, but he can or she can. That seems
I really do think that they're going to do a lot of DNA testing. They're going to go back and look at records because, during the Civil War, a lot of those records were destroyed.
I was going to say, all that stuff's got to be gone. And
so, a lot of times it's going to be, the onus is going to be on the individual. And in my opinion, as far as, because a lot of black people have family Bibles.
Okay.
And a lot of these stories, again, were passed down from generation to generation that can actually put a loved one in a municipality. Like my family matriculated from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a cemetery in Alabama, in Baldwin County, where there's a church. It's been there for eons, but most of the Frenches, with their grave sites and their tombstones, are literally on that site.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So again, with
can you trace your
dates,
lineage that far back? I mean,
yes,
are you?
Yes. And DNA testing and things like that. Again, I don't know the science behind it. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, and that's what's being hashed out right now. I do believe that it could be done fairly if it's done properly. But you got to look at, there's going to be fraud, waste, and abuse in every system.
Oh.
And just look at COVID. Look what happened.
And they're coming back with all these scams and stuff here.
You had a lot of athletes that were taking COVID money, making millions of dollars. You had, actors and actresses and business people, and, they were literally just going out there and buying, high-end sports cars and things like that. Home.
That wasn't what it was intended for.
Chickens, those chickens came home to roost, and they're going back and they're taking that money back from a lot of these people.
Yeah.
They're seizing their assets.
Well, that's one question that comes to mind. How? And then the other question is, does it open the door? There are other groups out there. Maybe nobody's been enslaved. That's a severe form of something.
I tell you what, there's going to be a whole black people.
Yeah, I'm saying, maybe there's
it's coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, all of a sudden I'm going to go back and look at my ancestry. Maybe I got a 1/8 or something here somewhere. But
there's going to be people in the Klan talking about how woke they are.
Yeah, exactly. And does it open? Then I was listening to discussions. Some Native Americans, they say, well, how about us? We weren't maybe totally enslaved, but we were run off the land. We were killed like we were wild animals, and we were pretty much, it was a genocidal, as they came west, there were an awful lot of genocide where they just killed us in mass here, or other groups like that will feel, well, what about me? That's the one that obviously comes to mind.
You're going to have a lot of that. But again, people are going to be coming out of the woodworks. But you got to look at what reparations were given to Native Americans just based on reservations and based on sovereignty and based on the businesses that they have popping up right now that they didn't have to pay, income tax on. So, yeah, it's a lot of questions, a lot of things have to be. Again, I'm not against reparations, but what I am against is
mass payment.
People getting all of this money, these cash settlements, without any financial education. That is a recipe for disaster.
Why wasn't any of this talked about or discussed in the day when emancipation happened? Slaves are freed. The war is over. You knew.
But it was talked about.
You knew who was a slave and who wasn't a slave.
It was the slave owners that got reparations. And even when you go as far back as the Freedmen's Bank, where a lot of African Americans, put their money into the Freedmen's Bank and the bank failed, and they lost all of their money. And so to this day, you have a lot of, African Americans that don't trust, they don't trust banks.
Really?
And so even the banking institution have a name for the people. They're called unbanked.
Yeah, I've heard that, the unbanked, right?
Yes. So again, I just think that there has to be some type of educational process to undo a lot of the negative stereotypes and the stigmas that were placed. Because again, going back to conditioning and recondition people. to understand that now it's not just about you and your lifestyle and your car and your house but you're doing this for generational purposes.
Which would make sense if you to follow your idea. I mean, I haven't followed it as closely. I know it's been talked about, seriously talked about here in California and other places. And I wonder if there isn't another way other than a one-time payment. That also kind of seems like, well, yeah, we're sorry, here's a one-time payment. Whereas if you invested this in some way that created generational change or generational education, sending more people to college, a fund, an annuity, something, it would seem like it would have more generational impact and not just a party one weekend, everybody, woohoo, finally I got something from my great-great-grandfather's, problem here.
Well, I tell you what, I work for Gulfstream Aircraft here in Long Beach, California. A very good friend of mine. I'm not going to mention his name, but once he hears his podcast, he's going to know that I'm talking about him.
Talking about you. Right.
But in our work center, they had they used to chip in for the lottery, and everybody would, put in a few dollars, yada, yada, yada. I ended up leaving Gulfstream Aircraft, and I guess maybe about 6 months after that, my work center, they hit the lottery. Yeah.
What?
And so even lottery winners, you have an opportunity of getting a one-time payment or stretching out over a 20-year period of time. So again, let's say you decided to take the annuity and you became a spendthrift, meaning that you spent every dime you had and then some. Well, if it was an annuity, you suffered that first year or that first couple of years, but now over a period of time, you've educated yourself, and now you start using the next 18 payments wisely.
Yeah, right.
So I get it. I see both sides of the equation too.
There's a part of the story nobody's talked about. Everybody's talking about how much and who gets it. Nobody's talking about what happens when they get it or how they should get it or what's the best way to make reparations, to make some conciliatory gesture. This was horrible. This shouldn't happen. You're due something as a descendant of one of these people. Somebody and. Talk about the other thing that happened in Los Angeles. I thought this was miraculous. I never thought I'd live to see the day that this would happen. There was land physically taken away from an African-American couple in,
Manhattan Beach.
Manhattan Beach. I thought it was like Hermosa Beach, yes. Manhattan Beach. And it was on the ocean. And they used this kind of a campground, and the place where black people could go camp and do some stuff here. And somehow they did all these shenanigans. I don't know what the deal of it was. But these people
eminent domain.
These people got robbed. They got their land taken. And that just happened a lot, and they're poor and voiceless, and they're black, and nobody said anything. That story persisted, and justice, it took forever, 50 years or something, but the city finally gave it, because nobody ever built on it. I guess it was a park, I think, or something.
Right.
And so it wasn't like they had to kick somebody else off the land who thought they'd bought it legally or something. This land had sat there. The city owned it, didn't get developed, so that was unique. And finally, the city handed it back to the descendants of these people. And it's now worth, I don't know, I can't imagine the millions of dollars acre on oceanfront land is or something. But the point is, it wasn't theirs to begin with, and they acknowledged it and gave it back. It took forever.
There was a lot of wrongs that are right now being righted.
Yeah, amazing.
But it goes back to a lot of people are against what's called critical race theory.
Yeah. Oh.
And they think that it's being taught in elementary school and junior high and high school, and it's not. But what's happening, Paul, is that the people that went through these times, as far as, let's say, the 40s, what would you even say the
20s,
the 60s,
30s,
and the 70s?
Yeah, right.
You got little kids trying to get in to be educated in Little Rock, Arkansas, and you had these mobs out there.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The mobs now are grandparents, and a lot of the people that were in the mobs that time, they don't want their family knowing that
they were part of that.
They were on the wrong side of history.
Yes.
I look at the picture of Jimmy Jones. The owner of the
famously,
Cowboys,
that's the one I was trying to remember.
Who said he just happened to be there because he wanted to see what was going on.
He was a student at the time in Little Rock, Arkansas, and there's a picture of Jimmy Jones, little Jimmy Jones, who owns the Dallas Cowboys, and there he is on the wrong side of the protest, standing there as white teenagers and police are trying to block the door from this little African American girl, this black girl, from coming into high school there.
If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, well, isn't that the truth?
And we get to the point where, again, even look what's going on in Florida. Again, I'm not taking sides on this. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an independent. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And when we get to the point where we're just banning books because we don't like that particular
that narrative,
small group decides that they don't like
that story.
They may think that it's pornographic, or they may think that it's profane.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the books that they ban, now I am not a Bible scholar, but I enjoy reading my Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And last time I checked, there was a lot of incest in the Bible.
Yeah, there's a lot of fooling around going on in there. A lot of
rape, a lot of adultery, a lot of mayhem.
There was slavery. They talk about slaves in the Bible. Yeah,
murder.
Yeah, these people weren't perfect back then. The
story of Lot, killing his own brother.
Yeah.
So again, there's actually I think it's a woman in Utah. If I'm not mistaken, I think she's in Utah. Somebody can correct me on this. That decided to file a lawsuit because a lot of books were banned from these libraries,
mm-hmm.
and she thought that the stuff that was in the Bible was more egregious. So she's trying
to ban the Bible.
Trying to ban the Bible, and again, the religious writers saying no, we didn't want to take it that far.
Yeah.
But you have unintended consequences for a lot of this stuff. Paul.
Unintended consequences. You're trying to do right, trying to make up for an unbelievable wrong, and yet do you just make? I'll give you kind of a weird analogy to take us. Maybe this is the end of the story here, but
okay.
I have read in numerous cases, it's now well documented, that some of the richest people in the planet, these are people who've made more money than anybody's ever made. I'm talking about Bill Gates. I'm talking about Warren Buffett. I'm talking about people who have made more money than any human has ever in history, signing pledges that not just that they're going to give away 90% of it or something, that they ain't going to give it to their kids. Like, give them something, and they'll be well taken care of. They'll have millions, but they're not going to have billions, because the assumption is if I give you $100 billion, Junior, I am not helping your life. I am destroying your life.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
If I just hand this to you.
But I can relate to that, again, with the same thing with reparations. Because I am not, by giving you this huge cash payment that you don't, it's like putting a toddler, I'll say putting let's say you take a 5-year-old and you give them a supercharged, turbocharged, 450 horsepower Ford Mustang.
Yeah.
And sit them in the driver's seat and put their hands on the steering wheel and just put a brick on the accelerator.
Yeah.
They don't have, at that point.
That's a crash.
That's a crash waiting to happen. Right. However, over a period of time, that same child can grow up, learn how to drive, and understand the rules of the highway.
Get ready for it.
And be ready and prepared for that opportunity, and they'll probably never have an accident.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to preparation.
So we need. So maybe the show is preparations for reparations here. Maybe it's preparation for reparations.
Somebody may decide to trademark that. We can copyright that. Preparations for reparations. I like that.
Because I get the sentiment. I get the emotion. I get the feeling for justice, even if it's long overdue. But how, who, what? That seems like that's a lot of difficult questions to answer and all that there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that people are looking at too, they'll say, well, I didn't have anything to do with slavery. I wasn't even born then.
Right.
And which is a valid point. But what they fail
I
to
do
realize,
hear that in my community or friends of mine.
And that's why you and I are having this conversation. I mean, you and I are friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talk. We've got a podcast. We talk about everything.
Talk offline about the most amazing things. Yeah.
And again, you get a fresh perspective based on, I didn't look at it like that.
Right.
Now I understand where you're coming from. But what people fail to understand when they make their argument that, I wasn't there and I had nothing to do with it, the government was still in place. The same government that you had then is still here and today. And you still have the executive branch, you still have the legislative branch, and you still have the judicial branch. And again, without the Supreme Court, a lot of this stuff couldn't have happened. It just couldn't have happened.
Well, the
And
famous
people they don't look at it like that. It's like, okay, you weren't there, but the government was there.
Yeah.
And so the reparations are now coming from the government. They're not coming from you. And you might say, well, I'm a taxpayer, and so I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for reparations. Well, but as a United States citizen, you're a taxpayer. And so a lot of your money is going towards contractors that are building bombs that are being sent to, right now, Ukraine.
or to pay off debt that somebody spent a generation ago here. I didn't authorize that payment for that, and we're still paying for it as a group. I'll give you the other really uncomfortable one. I'm an Irish Catholic, and oh my God, has the Catholic Church had problems in the last 10 years, and we're making settlements left and right because they're covering up abuse and clerical abuse and priests abusing little boys, and they knew it was going on. They're covering it up, and they're hustling around and all this stuff. And I put in money into the plate every week, and sometimes I say, and that money's going to pay because you guys did what?
Yes.
Don't take my dollars to pay for your sin. That's kind of the similar feeling. I'm a member of this group, and my dollars are going to pay for somebody else's a previous sin here.
It's a lot of people they'll say, well, that happened a long time ago. Get over it. And when my tort to that is, or my response to that is, 9/11. 9/11. Never forget. The Jews.
The Holocaust, right? Never forget.
Never again.
Yeah.
Never again. But when it comes to African Americans, don't forget about it. That happened a long time ago. When actually, if you really think about it, Martin Luther King was killed back in 1968.
I remember.
Assassinated in 1968. You had riots going on 1969 and even 1970. I remember when I was as a child going to school in South Central LA. Some of those hallways were still burnt out from the riots.
Yeah, we all lived through that.
What a lot of people don't realize is that Martin Luther King Jr. was a father figure for a lot of black people.
Oh, huge, yeah.
And to get that gut kick. I remember the day. I remember the funeral, and all the stores were closed. And I think I was like maybe 5 years old at the time. And I remember that image of looking at Coretta Scott King, and she had, sitting next to her little babies. And I felt, I could feel the emotion in the room, but then I turned around and my mother was sitting there, and just tears was just flowing out of her eyes. And it was like, as a child, it was hard to process. And it's like, Mommy, what's wrong? Don't cry, Mommy, don't cry.
Yeah.
And so again,
people, right?
that was a reality for a lot of black people. And again, that wasn't that long ago. Wasn't that long ago. So,
well, you opened the door to a very uncomfortable subject for a lot of people here that a lot of people just like, let's just keep that one closed. It's too far gone. It's too hard to figure out or whatever. But what you did, in my eyes, you opened my eyes to one part of it I'd never thought about. Should it come to pass, should justice finally have its day in court here, how the heck do you do this without creating more problems?
Yes. And again, that's success. Because if you can we're starting a dialogue here. And again, we don't have all the answers. We're not saying we have all the answers. We're just kind of talking about, current events, what's going on, and how do you solve this problem. But I do know that you don't really take somebody that's been impoverished and then put them in a situation where they can have anything and everything that they've ever wanted without some type of boundaries.
Or assistance or training or help, or maybe
training or
and maybe it isn't
education.
Maybe it isn't individual payment money. Maybe it's a community fund, or maybe it's a annuity, or maybe maybe you get free college for the next 3 generations or something. Maybe there's something else that has more of a really change and impact, because that's what you're trying to do. You're not just trying to. If somebody makes reparations for anything,
you got to look at it like this. You have a lot of lawmakers in Washington D.C.
right,
that don't have common knowledge of common average people that are making these decisions.
Well, that's true too.
What they need to do again is create a panel of everyday people that's actually creating ordinary wealth.
Boy, wouldn't that be
on a daily basis, and ask questions. Well, what do you think about this? How do you think about this?
And talk it through.
Then get a different perspective based on, I never looked at it like that. Yeah, and then come together with a totality of. And again, it's never going to be perfect. It's going to piss off other people. It's going to alienate certain individuals, ethnic groups. But at least we're getting to the point where we're at this. We're starting a healing process in this nation.
In a weird way, it's
a lot of people don't. I got to share this, and I know we've been
we're way over here, but that's right.
Way over. But if you look at even police brutality,
another one.
If you're looking at, whereas a kid can go into a grocery store and kill up a lot of people, or go into a church and kill up a lot of people, white person, but somebody else that don't have a weapon, that's at a traffic stop, and end up being killed. What a lot of people don't understand, they see that as far as they see the brutality, what they don't see is the back end based on the civil judgments that's going on. That is a form of reparations.
Yes. Reparations is a repayment for a wrong that's done. So if you poked my eye out, if you came over here and poked my eye out, I'd take you to civil court and there'd be a reparation. You'd have to pay me a certain amount of money for poking my eye out. You'd be civilly liable for your action causing pain and harm in my life here, if I could prove it.
Trying to make that person whole again.
And even in those cases, I wonder, when I went to law school, okay, let's say you give me $1 million. They figure out what the lifespan is and what that impact, and they have these formulas, an eye's worth this, a hand's worth. They've got this all figured out in court. My eye, what's my eye worth? I don't know, but let's say it's worth $1 million. I'm still without an eye. And if I just go blow that $1 million, you haven't helped me enough for a weekend. I had a great party. I had a great year, but I'm still blind.
Exactly. And then factoring in, because a lot of benefits from the government, they have COLAs, or cost of living adjustment.
Yeah.
Just so let's say if you got a cat. Remember there was a commercial with Larry L. Parker.
Yeah.
With this guy, he said
Larry H. Parker.
Larry L. Parker got me $1.2 million or whatever it was, but his health expenses over a period of time was way more than that.
Right.
Yeah, his healthcare costs was.
I knew somebody that was in a car accident. A friend of a friend. She was young, and she thought she'd hit the payday because she got like $20,000. Somebody rear-ended her. I'm fine. Hey, I just lucked out. I got $20,000. She went to one of these attorneys. She got like $20,000. They paid it with nothing else. She continues to have problems the rest of her life.
Yes.
She wasn't anticipating neck pain, back pain. That $20,000. She'd live that 20. She'd gladly give that $20,000 back, not to have that pain and misery.
I agree.
Money isn't enough. Yeah, right.
We're going way over, but this is what I want to do. Okay. I just want people. I mean, if you like this content, go to closingthewealthgap.net. Like I said, hit that follow button. Go to my website, TyroneFrench.com. There's a lot of information, great information there. But download my app. As far as having my business in the palm of your hand, just text Tyrone French to 36260. That's text Tyrone French 36260. And let's open a discussion. Let's talk about this. And can
it be discussed in an open way, or is everything going to get emotional and people are going to yell one way or another? Never. What's wrong with you? Absolutely. Forget it. Whatever. Is there a way to have what we've tried to do here, a very complicated civil conversation about something that's very filled with lots of emotion, lots of history, and lots of feelings around it here? Thank you. There, I tell you, the best idea you came up with is everyday people who are everyday wealth, ordinary. What do we say? Ordinary wealth for everyday people here?
Ordinary wealth for everyday people.
I say we should have ordinary discussions for everyday people. We should have more say in how these things are done. We'd have more sense than some panel of multimillionaires sitting in Washington here.
I agree, buddy.
Okay.
I agree.
Fascinating discussion. I didn't know how we'd get through this, but we did. Whew. Okay. All right. See ya.
Take care, Paul.
That's our show for this week. Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, the only show that shows you how to take control of your financial future. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OCTalkRadio.net.